Hey, uh, we're going to get into a document that's a drastic change for English history, English legal history especially. And This is covered in the book, but it's not covered as colorfully as it should. It's a crime to not really dig into this event. This is the Magna Carta, also known as the Great Charter. And this came about in 1215. And it was originally signed by King John Lackland. And like I said, it's a tremendous shift in English political history. And what's awesome about it is that it came about following a major crisis in which the king really tried to dominate uh, the church, especially in England. And remember, this is still the Catholic Church is dominant in all of Europe and in England as well. We don't split off to the Church of England until much, much later, and that's an interesting event in itself. But the signing of the Magna Carta, though, really put the English royals on a different footing than other European monarchs. And it's probably very much why we still have English monarchs, because they are going to kind of lose some power gradually, and we will shift to a kind of a co-monarch and co-democracy with parliamentary government. And then that works for England, and that's probably why the monarchy there has lasted, because other places in Europe don't lose that power, and their monarchs retain power and only are removed through violent overthrows, like we will see in France eventually. And so this actually preserves the monarchy in England, which is kind of wild. But the whole background on this is awesome. In 1206, the Archbishop of Canterbury, so the head of the Catholic Church in England, that position opens up. And so the church elects a new archbishop. This is absolutely normal. It abides by church law. They have the ability to do this. Typically, though, the king had quite a bit of influence over those appointments for archbishop and other lower ranking church hierarchy. Usually what happened was that he let it be known who he wanted for the position, and then the monks would elect that person. And so, largely the king was able to choose who he wanted to be for archbishop. In this case, though, the monks acted alone, and they didn't seek the king's opinion. They elected somebody on their own, and this stepped on the toes of the king. He didn't want this guy. And so the king told the monks to elect a second archbishop, and they do so. The king has the right to do that, I guess. And so they, at that time, elect the person that the king wanted them to elect. The problem is that the first archbishop that they elect refuses to step down. I'm not leaving. You've elected me. We've abided by church law in doing this. We have not done anything wrong. And so I'm not leaving. I'm staying here. And so we now have two archbishops of Canterbury. And both of these guys appeal to the Pope. Both of them legit. Both of them were elected by the monks of the abbey, and so both of them should be the archbishop. The Pope responds and says neither one of these is valid, and the Pope, which is unusual again, is going to let it be known who he wants to be archbishop, and he promotes a third guy named Stephen Langton, Langton. John Lackland, the king, did not like Stephen. And so now we have a confrontation between the Pope and the King of England, King John Lackland. And neither one wants to back down. This gets so bad that John Lackland, the King of England, is actually excommunicated from the Catholic Church for refusing to abide by the Pope's will. And to really kind of bring the pressure down on England, the Pope puts England under the sentence of interdict. The church, the Catholic Church, basically goes on strike in England. There are no marriages, there are no blessings for infants, there's no funerals, there's no confessions. They do allow baptisms and last rites since they were seen as necessary, but nothing else is happening. So the very last rites we want to make sure, and baptisms to bring people into the church. That's all. Nothing else is going on. And this is a really, really powerful weapon in the church's arsenal to get people to do what they want them to do. And finally, in 1207, the king accepts Stephen Langton. Sorry, I'm screwing up names. And at the same time, though, so this is a brush and an attack on the king from the Catholic Church. At the same time, the king is dealing with another issue. England itself had claims on a section of what's now France called Normandy, the beaches at Normandy on D-Day. That section of Normandy, France, is what we're talking about. The French king is going to claim title, or he's going to claim ownership to this, and the English also claim ownership of it. And the book talks about this, the movement of the Normans into France into England to retake England after being run out earlier. So the English, the nobles especially get King John to invade Normandy, but it goes terribly. They weren't prepared. It just goes bad. And this, because of the king's failure of leadership, they regarded that this was terrible. The king failed them, and so both the nobles and the church in England, not the Church of England, the church in England, headed by Stephen Langton, join forces, and they actually move on London and capture the city. And in doing so, they force King John Langton to sign Lackland, sorry, L names. They force King John Lackland to sign the Magna Carta. It's got 64 different clauses. A lot of them are temporary, and they don't really have too much significance. But there's a couple of them that have some serious changes for the nobles. One of them is they forced the king to do away with certain royal taxes. So we're pushing back against some kinds of taxation. Also, it forced the king to reduce the amount of royal hunting grounds. And so this kind of shrinks the sort of domain of the king to be able to go out and have these royal hunting grounds that common people were not allowed to harvest animals out of. A super big one is Article 39. And I'm going to read you the quote, but it says that no man shall be arrested or imprisoned or deprived of his property or outlawed or exiled or in any way destroyed, nor shall we go against him or sent against him, and this is the big part, unless by legal judgment of his peers or by the law of the land. Basically what we're saying here is that the king has to follow judicial procedures and he has to follow the law. And so this is really the first major step in putting England on the path toward a constitutional monarchy. It puts the king in constraints, in legal constraints, not literal ones. Now, John had no intention of abiding by this. I'm going to sign this. These people are going to go home. I'm going to tear it up and throw it out the window. And as soon as he was free, he renounced it. He said, I'm not doing any of this stuff. Fortunately, I guess, for England anyway, fortunately for England, he died the next year. And the next king was Henry III. He accepted the Magna Carta and, really big, he ruled for a really long time, over 50 years. And in that 50 years, by him accepting the Magna Carta and setting a 50-year practice of abiding by it. It's in place. No one's really going to step on that. No one's going to reverse it. So that's a big step for England, and that's, by reducing the amount of power that the king has, it allows that monarchy to remain, and so we still have a monarchy in England today. This will also is going to very, very much establish some legal precedent in other places, in order to chip away at power from royals. So we will cut there. See you guys later.